Hello. Welcome to a new section that I'm doing that I'm loosely calling Cross ETM TV. Um, but I'd basically like to talk a bit about philosophy and about becoming a philosopher. I'd like to talk a little bit about the state of the world we're in at the moment with free speech and the nature of international politics and the power of the media, and we'll talk about a few things. I just thought I'd do a more general sort of discussion section for you with Doodle here in the background. So I suppose I should come to philosophy first of all, because the channel is a therapy channel based on education and music therapy. Um, When I first studied philosophy, when I first went and studied a course in philosophy, I couldn't work out what the subject was. I couldn't work out what I was supposed to be learning, because in history I'd done a subject, and in history you learn the dates, you learn the interpretations, you learn the main figures, the incidental factors, and so forth. But in philosophy, it seemed to be like an empty filing cabinet with nothing in it as far as what I was supposed to learn, and so you might find that problem immediately as well, getting a grip on what you're actually supposed to be doing. And what I think makes more sense is think about philosophy as an activity, like an art, as if you were painting a picture, but painting a picture with reason and imagination and logic and argument. So, for example, when you approach a philosophical question, people take different tacks, different um, methods, but um, understanding what the question is and thinking about the definitions of the words, uh, that they're part of the issue. But you see, with an autistic person, it becomes a disbalanced part of the issue, thinking about individual definitions. Whereas if you think a bit like Nietzsche in terms of think about the origins of words, looking back into the philosophical ow the philosophical parts. Sorry, that's Doodle intervening. The philosophical parts of the philosophical histories of the words. The Doodle, Doodle. Sorry, Doodle's taken over. Doodle, sit there. Um, so that's one approach. You look at the kind of origins of the words, and the kind of the sort of the life that the words have over and above just being plain definitions. And but you see, and you also have to ask, well, are you asking the right question? Can you ask a better question but answer the same question in a better way? So it's not just looking and saying, right, this word means this word means this word means this, put them all together, and you gain an ultimate understanding from the totality of the definitions. You've also got to ask, well, what are we actually trying to Doodle? What are we actually trying to find out? What is the telos, or the destination of our thought? What is the objective? Somebody might say of our inquiry, and and therefore philosophy becomes more, instead of learning a series of facts. Remember, I said I couldn't understand it because it wasn't a factually based subject. you learn methods of thought, and you learn to both answer and ask some of the most fundamental questions in existence about human existence and about the nature of the human condition. You know, if anything, philosophy is about our nature as rational creatures, our nature as rational animals. But it's also, excuse me, Doodle, it's also about, in a different sense of the word philosophy, about our approaches to life, our ideas about life, our the way in which we conduct our lives. But you see, philosophers would look further and say, well, how should we all conduct our lives? How can we draw like a universalization or a maximization and say, well, how should human beings behave? And this was very much the project of the ancient Greeks, was to say, you know, in a roundabout way, that, you know, how should we perfect ourselves to be better human beings, to be the extolment of the virtues, as it were, the a perfection of character and wisdom and humanitarianism. How can we create the universal soldier, if you like, the perfectly adapted human being? But is there such a thing as a perfectly adapted human being? I don't know if the Greeks put enough thought into that. They got very carried away with the classics and the tales of dramatic theatre in ancient Greece. They never actually questioned normativity or or what we consider to be normal in any great sense. They were living the dream, as it were. And we all live that dream in an idealistic way, you'd probably say. But anyway, where were we? Philosophy. So so you can go down that path. You can go down the path of saying, well, is there a clearer way of asking the question? Is there a clearer understanding of what what the question involves? And are we getting confused purely by the language? You see, because you see, if you're an autistic person and you're heavily dependent on language, and you have trouble unlocking language, as I speak about in my autistic lectures, then language can be a big stumbling block for you, something that you can't quite get past. And for example, you know, having trouble with metaphor and simile and the whole idea of language being creative, the kind of binary thinking of autism can be it can make people very unhappy and very confused and very angry. And confusion and and anger are a part of the condition. Doodle, what part are you playing in this lecture? You keep hurting me. I know. You want attention, but sorry, it's a side issue. So anyway, you've got this whole idea of, well, how do we understand what philosophy is? And it's a bit like gymnastics. I think is the way the book described philosophy, is a bit like mental gymnastics. You get better and better at the different exercises or mental disciplines, and that 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 improves your overall, you know, gymnastic ability or mental ability. So and very often autistic people have disabilities that frustrate them and make them so angry because they can't understand. And in some ways, you know, they become so egocentric they don't want to understand. But I mean, what can we do about it? Well, education. You know, all autistic people stop learning, and that's the real problem. You see, you need to carry on learning in life. Life isn't just something that finishes at 16 at school or 18, depending on where you come from. It's something. Life is a philosophical investigation. Life is a journey of learning, and philosophy is only really training you like a martial artist to actually confront the mental issues of the day, the intellectual problems and issues, and me and Doodle, we're just here as a kind of guide along the way. You know, there's plenty to learn and to follow up upon on sort of resources on the cat with no teeth. Um, you see, that's what stumped me about philosophy. I couldn't work out what I should actually be doing, and I it didn't occur to me about that, you know, that you have to train your intuition, that you have to learn how to think very critically, that you have to become more methodical in your thought, that you also question that the whole nature of everything you learn in philosophy. You know, philosophy is a self-questioning subject. You look in on the things that you know. It's not just you have to accept something like there was that Lord Liverpool was a prime minister of this country. It's not just something that you just say, okay, right, we can take that for granted. You can take nothing for granted in philosophy. Philosophy can turn your mind inside out with the complexities and the contradictions involved um, in life. But I mean, but I said I'd talk a bit about broader about politics and the world we live in. You know, they've introduced laws to do with the internet and to do with what they claim is combating racial prejudice and racial incitement on the internet, but many are questioning what direction humanity's going towards, whether we're going towards a less free society, a, a more of an Orwellian model of control in society. And I mean, it's an interesting issue, but on one hand, you've got to understand from their point of view, you know, that hate incitement, and I found this in my life, hate incitement is something that you can't accept and validate or as part of society. You know, it's something that we should stand up against. People trying to manipulate social dynamics and forces in order to bully and you can see how having a greater understanding of society could, you know, that they believe is law and order, or taking the place of what law and order used to be for us, which was, you know, a legal system. I mean, a more preemptive law and order, more of a socially controlling law and order. Many people are alarmed by in some way, but so I mean, from their point of view, that, you know, they have to keep order in society, and people inciting hatred is a real issue in society. You know, I can see that far, but what direction it's taking humanity in, I don't know. With politicians saying they're seizing hold of laws and all the tacit the accepted things of the past, like the military conventions and the the European Court of Human Rights sort of power and things. It's very much, their arguments are that it gets in the way of their practical agency as a government, their handling of their migration issue. But the migration issues just had so much mileage out of it. I mean, they haven't really solved it at all. So, but the migration issue is still pressing upon the country, and once the race card's been played so many times since Brexit, you've got to ask, well, who is it that's inciting hatred? Is it the politicians we know? Is it the people in the community? Is it everybody? I mean, there are arguments going either way on it. But I just think it's a worrying portent for our society that the kind of warnings of Orwell and a lot of academic philosophers and even The Prisoner, the TV series, none of the warnings are heeded about mankind being such a closely controlled sort of rational animal. Because I mean, if you look at society, the people with different levels of responsibility or capability and different levels of capacity, mental capacity, and yes, Doodle, and we can't all cope with the same thing, but society works in a kind of bulk way. It deals with humanity on the mass when we're all such incredibly different people with different abilities and different, often very severe disabilities, and because government plans over people in terms of a bulk way, in terms of a society policy, a lot of people, they say, where do they fit into it? Where's the compensation for their disability that gives them a level playing field in order to compete? And what kind of meritocracy do we live in when it's such an incomplete meritocracy that that doesn't offer opportunities to people evenly? It benefits a separated view in society, and could we have a better meritocracy, one that covers people with different capacities and different abilities? A meritocracy adapted to real people in society, instead of this kind of imprint of education and advantaging people whilst leaving others completely out of any kind of meritocratic advantage. So people say, I'm not the greatest after dinner speaker, but there you go. Doodle, sorry, Doodle, I should let you have your starring moment. There, have you had enough of a starring moment, right? So there you go. Philosophy, don't give up on it when you first start, because you're doing a different type of activity from previous types of learning that you're more associated in school. What you're more doing is training your mind around problems that vex the mind or challenge the mind more than normal questions, or would seem to challenge the mind more than normal questions. In philosophy, you can't be sure of anything. So anyway, thank you very much from Cross ETM TVD and Chaotic Doodle. keep enduring with the course, okay? Because, you know, the greatest gift we can give ourselves is education.